Hello Planning Day executives. My name is Thomas Bansagi and I'm here today to speak to you about 4 topics surrounding the importance of macroeconomics and other topics on our business Autotech. I'll start by speaking about macroeconomic indicators and their impact on the business cycle. To start, we'll speak about gross domestic product or GDP, which refers to the total market value of all final goods and services produced in a country over a set of time. It measures the economic size and health of the economy. Rising GDP can signal growth in the economy, which is good. However, a falling gross domestic product often signals a contraction or recession in the economy, leading to dire consequences for consumers and producers alike. The next topic we'll speak about is inflation. Now, inflation refers to the rate at which the overall prices of goods and services in an economy are increasing, reducing money's purchasing power. Moderate inflation is normal and is at times required. However, high inflation can lead to terrible consequences such as recession and raising living costs, which can be bad for, again, both consumers and producers alike. The next topic we'll speak about is unemployment, which refers to the share of people actively searching for work in the workforce but are unable to find jobs. High unemployment is typical during downturns. However, low unemployment suggests a strong labour demand. Both have their advantages and disadvantages. These indicators track the business cycle's phases: expansion, peak, contraction, and trough. Growing GDP, unemployment, and moderate inflation mark expansion. However, a falling GDP and rising unemployment mark recession. For our business, Autotech, a tech advice and supply firm, understanding the business cycle helps to anticipate client demand. In expansions, businesses will invest more in tech, boosting our sales. In downturns, however, clients might cut back, reducing our overall revenue. Knowing these terms and their importance on the economy will help us to forecast our potential sales and revenue in the upcoming period. Alright, executives, the next topic we'll be speaking about today is the President Donald Trump's tariffs and the effect of those tariffs on both the Australian and United States economies. And we'll be first discussing the broader implications for Australia. So, from our own perspective, tariffs imposed by the Trump administration on Australian exports will be reducing the foreign demand for our goods. In the aggregate demand, aggregate supply model, this results in a leftward shift of the aggregate demand curve on the graph. The consequences are real. They will result in a lower gross domestic product, higher unemployment, and increased pressure on inflation, which, as I've already discussed, could lead to a recession in Australia. From the perspective of the USA, these tariffs are intended to protect their own domestic industries. In the short run, they may increase the demand for local goods, and local suppliers will see an increased demand, shifting the aggregate demand supply curve of the United States to the right. However, these tariffs also have the potential to raise costs for businesses using imported inputs from other countries like Australia, for example, shifting the short run aggregate supply curve to the left. This can result in higher prices on goods in the USA and slower growth in inflation and the economy. Beyond direct trade impacts, escalating global tensions could hurt Australia in several ways. First, global uncertainty as a result of President Trump's tariffs can weaken business confidence and delay investments, especially on foreign importers. Secondly, global supply chains could be disrupted, which could raise costs for Australian importers, as I've just said. Third, if global growth slows, the demand for Australia's key exports, such as iron ore and coal, may fall, which would be very bad for our economy. For our own business, Autotech executives, tariffs are escalating and tensions could create a far more complex business environment. As a company that's involved in our tech supply and advice sector, increased tariffs on imported components could raise costs and disrupt our supply chains. Additionally, global trade uncertainty could cause businesses to delay technology investments, impacting our consulting demand. Executive leaders at our business, you, need to account for these risks in supply chain strategies and client engagement planning when deciding what to do with our business in the long run. Thank you. Okay, executives, thank you for listening to my presentation so far. The next topic we'll be speaking about revolves around how behavioural economics can explain why people would choose unhealthy food options and how the principles of behavioural economics differ from that of traditional economics. First of all, traditional economics assumes that people make rational decisions aimed at maximising the utility of their purchase based on stable preferences and full information. In contrast, behavioural economics recognises that people are influenced by biases, emotions, and mental shortcuts, which can often lead to them making unexplained and potentially irrational purchasing decisions. One key concept is bias, the tendency to value immediate rewards more than future benefits. This clearly has an impact on why people might be choosing unhealthy food options despite the fact that they know that they're not good for them in the long run. Eating unhealthy food provides immediate pleasure, while health benefits from better eating are better in the long term, so people often fail to make the healthier choice. Default bias and convenience also play a role. If unhealthy food is more accessible for people as promoted in advertising, people tend to choose it, even if they say they'd rather prefer healthier food options, which they know are better for them in the long run. Loss aversion is also a term that can explain why people perceive the effort, cost, or taste trade-offs of eating healthy food as a loss, compared to that of eating unhealthy food, which they would try to avoid even if the health gain is greater. Finally, social norms and framing influence decisions. People are more likely to eat unhealthy foods if peers are doing so also, which due to the large amount of advertising for unhealthy food is more commonly seen in society, or if it's advertised in a way that makes it seem more indulgent or rewarding, which I'm sure you guys know it certainly is. These insights tend to show that food choices are often inconsistent and shaped by context, not traditional economic values. Interventions like clear labelling, changing defaults, or nudging healthier choices can be more effective in providing information which traditional economics would suggest is enough. Thank you for listening thus far. We've only got one more topic to go, and today we'll be speaking about how AI impacts the skilled and unskilled labour markets. As you can see in the slides that I've provided you with some diagrams to reference during this part of the speech. Firstly, we can divide the national labour market into two broad groups, skilled and unskilled labour. In the unskilled labour market, artificial intelligence or automation often act as substitutes, especially for routine or manual jobs that unskilled workers would be more likely to do. As businesses get more accustomed to adopting artificial intelligence tools and robotics, the demand for such unskilled labour shifts leftward on the demand graph, leading to lower wages and reduced employment for unskilled workers. In contrast, the skilled labour market, artificial intelligence generally serves as a complement to skilled workers. Skilled workers such as programmers, analysts, engineers, and managers benefit from artificial intelligence enhanced productivity. This increases the demand for their skills, shifting the demand curve to the right on the graph, raising both wages and employment levels. The consequence is a rise in wage inequality. Skilled workers see rising wages, while unskilled workers may face stagnant or even reducing wages if they even manage to keep their job at all. As a result, the income gap between these two groups widens. This analysis relies on the assumption that technology affects workers differently depending on their skill level. Jobs that involve more abstract reasoning and adaptability are enhanced by artificial intelligence, whereas jobs that are repetitive or procedural, which are typically held by unskilled workers, are more likely to be replaced. This is consistent with the theory of skill-based technological change, which explains how technology disproportionately affects those who are skilled and unskilled in the workforce. Unless there is significant investment in retraining and education for unskilled workers, we can expect artificial intelligence to increase wage inequality and continue to take more jobs from unskilled workers. Thank you for listening today, executives. I hope you found this presentation valuable and informative.